To be or not to be, that is the question of the day. Watch this video and you will see the easiest way to write an essay. In today's video, we are going to be answering the question, to be or not to be. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking to yourself, we're going to be answering Shakespeare's question, to be or not to be. We're not going to go that deep today. That's for a whole nother video. In today's video, we are going to ask ourselves whether or not we should use to be verbs in formal writing. Stay tuned. Okay, so what are to be verbs? To be verbs are used to describe something or someone else. The most common use of the to be verb is to talk about names, age, feeling, nationalities, and professions. We use these verbs so often in our everyday lives that we hardly notice that we are even using them. I mean, I've already used 10 and we're not even a minute into this video. And guess what? I just used another one. Although this verb is used consistently throughout our everyday lives, it is one of the most irregular verbs in the English language. Alright, so let's take a look at the different conjugations. The following slides are just going to be basic chart breakdowns of how the to be verbs are conjugated in each tense. You should just keep these in the back of your mind for future reference when you're writing papers or, writing a concept statement for, I don't know, a costume design course. So for this first example, this is the most commonly used tense. It is the present tense because, well, we live in the present. And as you can see here, this is just a basic chart breakdown of how the to be verb gets conjugated in the present tense form. Just keep these in the back of your mind. Another form of these conjugations are the contractions to these verbs. So for example, I am now becomes I'm, you are becomes your, it is becomes its, and so on and so forth. Another present tense example is the present participle, more commonly known as the ing ending. For this, we will need another verb to conjugate into the participle. So for this example, we are going to use the verb to run and conjugate it into running. Alright, so another example is the past tense of to be. So instead of it saying I am, because that's in the present, it will now read I was or you were. Another example that you should be aware of is the past perfect tense. It now reads I had been or I had not been. Another form of this is the present perfect tense, where have or has replaces had. Okay, so all of these charts right here are the charts that we just went over, and these are all versions of to be verbs that we use in our everyday lives. So now we're going to talk about changing to be verbs into active verbs. So where do to be verbs belong in formal writing? I mean, surely you can't eliminate them altogether, right? Of course you can't eliminate them altogether, because otherwise our words would not make any sense. But avoiding to be verbs as much as possible in formal writing is crucial. Having this awareness enhances your argument and retains your reader's attention. To be verbs ultimately zap energy from formal writing and lack the power of stronger action-based verbs, which are known as active verbs. Some of you may be familiar with these types of verbs from your acting classes when you do your action verb exercises in your scripts. So what are active verbs? Active verbs allows the subject of the verb to do the action and describes what the subject does in the sentence. They add more energy and often make the sentence shorter and is one of the easiest ways to boost a paper's sophistication. So here's an example of an active verb. So in this example, the verb run, which is in this column, replaces the to be verb from this column. This change shortens the phrasing, allowing for a stronger, more direct approach. Okay, so let's look at some examples of to be verbs in sentences and talk about how we can change them. Example number 1. The following sentence reads as follows. My brothers are rowdy when they are playing video games with each other. This sentence it's okay. It's mediocre. We're gonna spice it up a bit. To create a more direct and exciting sentence, think of another verb or sets of verbs to replace are in this sentence. This sentence merely states the fact that the brothers are rowdy, leaving the reader emotionally detached without further connection. If you could find a verb or maybe even two verbs that could spark something emotionally in the reader's minds, it would allow the reader to connect better with what you're saying. The sentence now reads, my brothers screech and holler when playing video games with each other. By adding screech and holler, this sentence becomes much more direct and paints a vivid picture for the reader. Example number 2. The seating area in the coffee shop is small. The tables are just as small, and the chairs are hard to sit on. And when a table is free, it is hard not to invade the space of others. Okay, so let's talk about this sentence. This sentence is extremely wordy and too repetitive. You want to avoid overusing verbs and repeating adjectives, such as small. Small was used twice in this sentence. If and when you need to reiterate something or use the same word, you want to try and find a synonym to that word so that you're not constantly repeating that word, because your reader is eventually going to check out on you and they're not gonna retain what you're trying to say. And your opinion is valid and important, so spice it up. The sentence now reads, "The coffee shop suffers from a cramped seating area with little room for comfort." This sentence cuts out unnecessary words from the previous sentence and directly addresses the issue. Example number 3. She struggled with the homework that was assigned by her teacher. Okay, so this sentence is great because it already has an active verb, but it has redundant information. What you want to do is eliminate that was, because assigned already implies that the teacher has already given out this homework. It's in the past tense. We don't need to reiterate that it was assigned. We know it was assigned. Just say, she struggled with the homework assigned by her teacher. And bada bing, bada boom, you're good. Okay, let's talk about avoiding passive verbs. So what are passive verbs? Passive verbs occur when the subject undergoes the action rather than doing the action. So now let's look at some sentences. Example number 1. Just before the storm, the farmers were harvesting the season's crop. In this sentence, it is implied that the farmers are undergoing the action rather than doing it themselves. So, if we reword it, the sentence should read, "The farmers harvested the season's crop just before the storm." By rewording the sentence and eliminating the to be verb, which is were in this sentence, the action is given back to the farmers and there is more authority in the sentence. Second example. The Mackenzie clan was invaded in the Scottish Highlands by the British Redcoats. This sentence does not give focus to the subject executing the action. The subject here is the British Redcoats. The sentence gives a passive approach to the action, hence passive verbs. So the sentence should read, "The British Redcoats invaded the Mackenzie clan in the Scottish Highlands." This sentence now draws focus back to the subject that's executing the action and removes the to be verb. This sentence is much more authoritative and direct. All right, we're finished. Go do a happy dance and write your concept statement.